Hey, what's up, Superdads? So today I'm bringing you some Stoic wisdom. I've been studying Stoicism for probably 15 years now, well before it became sort of a popular thing that exploded in bookshelves everywhere and YouTube videos created by AI populating everybody's feeds, at least mine. And currently serve as a mentor for the College of Stoic Philosophers. So if you're interested in learning more about Stoicism, that's a great place to go. They offer a few different courses, and who knows, you might end up being one of my mentees if you go there. So Stoicism has had a profound effect on my life. I think it's helped a lot of people as well. Especially with its growth in popularity recently. Not that I completely agree with the sort of pop stoicism or the broicism version of it. I'm much more aligned with more traditional stoicism, but I don't want to get too deep into any of that. What I do want to provide today is a pearl of wisdom that comes from stoicism that absolutely will help almost anybody who struggles to deal with their emotional responses, to take the kind of actions in the world that they feel like are aligned with the best version of themselves. So that's everyone, basically, essentially. And this pearl of wisdom fits very nicely in the palm of your hand. Or rather, it's going to fit nicely in the 5 fingers of your hand, I should say, because we're going to be using the 5 fingers of your hand to create a mnemonic device to help you remember this, approach, this Stoic concept. Okay, so we're going to start with your pinky over here. Now, your pinky is going to represent external events, the things that actually happen in your environment and around you. Now, this is helpful because, and why do we choose a pinky? Well, it's because your pinky is the least useful of all of your fingers. It's the one that you most can do without. So according to Stoic thought, external events have very little bearing on whether or not we are living a good life, whether or not we are achieving a eudaimonic existence, as they might say. And so this is going to be our smallest finger. But it starts here. So external events happen. The next finger is going to be your impressions. So this is your taking in of those external events prior to any real judgments being made. It's just your raw perception of them and the basic veneer that you put onto these things. So it's not purely sense data. Your brain will make sense of the things that you see in a pre-conscious sort of way. So you don't really have much choice there. It comes in and you can't control it so much. Okay? So these are your impressions of things that happen. Okay, the middle finger is going to be judgments. And judgments are the things the decisions that you make, the meaning that you make out of the impressions that you take in. Okay, so the story you tell yourself about this stuff, the thoughts that you have that elaborate on the impressions that you've had. Okay, these judgments then lead to emotional reactions, emotional responses. So you need to make meaning out of what happens, make meaning with your judgments, that's your middle finger, in order to determine how you should respond emotionally. And so your emotional responses are going to be here, and this is your pointer finger because it points the direction that you're going to go with your behaviors, which is your thumb. So your emotions lead to your behavioral response. And thumb is an appropriate finger to use for behaviors because so many actions that we take in the world require us, to use our thumb. You want to grab something. You only need a thumb and one other finger, any of the other ones, in order to take an action of grabbing on and making something happen. Okay? So one more time, we have external events over here. We have impressions, judgments, emotions, behaviors. Now, the way that most people go through life in their everyday existence is like this. They connect external events directly to behaviors. So, they'll say like, you made me do this. right? Someone says something that they don't like, and they respond in an inappropriate way, and you made me do this, or right. That is connecting the external event directly to the behavior and overlooking your responsibility for the 3 intermediary steps. Or it's also very common to connect these 2 fingers, right? To connect your external events to emotions. You made me angry. You made me sad. You made me upset. These sorts of things. And anytime you're saying any sort of language like you made me, anything like that, you are abdicating responsibility and you're ignoring the middle fingers, which is where a lot of the magic happens. If you want to change your emotional response, it doesn't do to just address the emotion. This is a core concept in systems thinking. Anytime you have a system of elements that are interdependent and acting on one another, and you want to change how one of them is, showing up, the results you're getting at any one of those spaces, don't act directly on that one. So if I want to change my emotions, I'm not going to try to force my emotions to change. I'm going to go somewhere else in the system and act there in order to change the result that I get here, because this is just a result. Okay. Now, if you can change your emotions, you will change your behavior. But to change your emotions, you need to change your judgments. You need to change your environment. You need to change potentially your behavior, because that is going to circle back around eventually. It creates a feedback loop. Okay, so here's the one I want to focus on. And this is the one that a lot of Stoicism focuses on. It's called the discipline of assent. Now, as we go from external events to impressions, before we get to judgments, we have a big gap here, right? And in this gap is what Stoicism refers to as assent. And that means sort of agreeing to the judgment that you made, or not the judgment, the impression that you got. So you get an impression, and do you assent to that impression? Do you say, okay, I'm going to run with that impression. Time to make a judgment about it. Time to tell a story about it. Do you do that? Or do you try to take a step back, try to be a little bit more objective, try to entertain other possibilities, try to get a second look, and develop a different understanding, a different impression here, that then you can come up with a different judgment. Okay. Now, I love this model. I love this mnemonic so much, because what you're trying to do essentially is take this finger and this finger, and you're trying to create separation between them. You're trying to make a gap there between getting the impression and making a judgment about it. And what does this look like? For Trekkies out there, I'm not a Trekkie, but okay, obviously live long and prosper. This is a Vulcan hand symbol. The Vulcans are, super famous for one characteristic. That is being rational. And what does Stoicism strive to achieve, or Stoic practitioners? They strive to achieve a rational existence. They strive to bring rationality ever more present, to make it ever more present in their life and how they behave. So we're trying to spread this out and introduce this step of assent here, so that there's a gap between these 2 things. All right, enough theoretical stuff. So what would this look like in practice? Let's take an example. Let's say you're driving in a car, and a car pulls in front of you, right? Like, without warning, maybe no blinker, you have to smash on your brakes in order to not get into an accident, this sort of thing. This is an external event. Okay. Now, your impression of that event would be something like, that driver cut me off, or that was dangerous, right? And these are pretty much immediate, right? That is how you are making sense of what just happened. You don't make sense of it in terms of the molecules of the car that came in front of you and the speeds and it immediately tells you sort of the rudiments of a story. That driver cut me off, or that was dangerous. Something like that would be your impression. Now, many of us in that state would jump right to, that driver is dangerous. Okay. Or maybe we jump right to that person, they did that on purpose, or they disrespected me, or, right, they could have killed me, or they could have, injured my kids, or, right. We start telling ourselves this story, make this judgment. That person did that. They did it on purpose. And what does that lead to? That would lead to anger, right? The feeling of being disrespected leads us to be angry, leads us to behave irresponsibly while driving a motor vehicle, which is a bad time to be irresponsible. Okay, so how do we bring assent into this? We get this impression, that car cut me off, that was dangerous, something like that. We say, maybe we do jump right to that, and we say that they did that on purpose. But even if you do that, you still have a chance to go back here and say, wait a second, is that actually what happened? How do I know that's what happened? Or, and as you progress in Stoic practice, this gap gets wider, and before you get to your judgment, you're now able to start saying, okay, wait, how am I going to make sense of this impression that I'm getting? Do I assent to this impression, right? Okay, yes, I can assent to it. Yes, that was dangerous. Yes, that car cut me off. But how am I going to make sense of it? Well, I can make sense of it by saying, maybe they just didn't see me. Maybe it was just accidental, right? Maybe I was in a blind spot, right? Maybe they're just rushing like crazy because they're trying to get somewhere that they absolutely need to be. Maybe it's a hospital thing, or maybe it's a loved one in trouble or something like that, right? Whatever kind of explanation you come up with there to explain why they weren't driving more carefully. You could also come up with something like, well, like I've definitely cut people off in traffic myself in the past at times. And that doesn't mean that, I was trying to disrespect them, or that I'm, a bad driver, or that I'm a bad person, or anything like that. There are an infinite number of potential stories that you could tell yourself that are going to, that are going to fill in this middle space, that are then going to lead to a more responsible, more rational, emotional response, right? Even if you're telling yourself the story, they could have killed me. Okay, yes, but that leads to being focused on the fact that you could be dead, but you're not dead. You're thinking this right now. So that's clearly not the state of things. So instead of thinking, wow, I could have been killed. My kids could have been injured, something like that. You can say, wow, I'm really lucky that didn't end up going more horribly than it did. We're actually lucky that we're all safe, that we survived that everyone's uninjured, that all we got was a little bit of a scare. Right? So that would be you're not assenting to how dangerous it was. Instead, you are choosing to think that you're lucky that you avoided injury. Okay? And this eventually leads to more responsible, more rational behaviors in the end. So that is the 5-finger model of how we go from external events to behaviors. Adapted for Stoicism. I hope that that's helpful for some of you out there. If you're interested, in Stoic stuff, College of Stoic Philosophers has a couple great courses, and I'll be happy to make more videos here exploring Stoic philosophy and how it can be applied to life to give you a better chance at finding that dynamic equilibrium of living the good life. Okay, thanks so much. Check out some of the courses down below. Still got a free one, as well as an available coaching free for initial calls, and Facebook group, and all sorts of stuff. We do explore more of this the philosophy and psychology of the good life in the Facebook group. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, feel free to join us anytime. All right, thank you so much for watching, everyone.